Hello, my name is Rob Garner. I'm a computer programming instructor, and today I'm going to demonstrate how to make a ToDo app running on the server side for Blazor. So I'm going to create a new project. I'm going to make a Blazor app. I'm going to use .NET 8 long-term support, individual accounts, so I get an authentication system and database. I'm going to use auto as my render mode, per page component interactivity. I will include the sample pages, and I'm not going to use top-level statements, or this top-level statements feature. We will therefore see top-level statements. Okay, so first I need to start, well, first I'm going to run my application to see if it works. And then I'm going to add it to source control. I'm going to use Git. I'm going to make this public for my students. I'm watching for the repo to be pushed. When these are all zeros, I know it's pushed. I'm going to create a new branch off of main. I usually like to go ahead and set up my QA and my dev branches at this point. So I have dev, main, and QA. And then I'm going to create the feature which I'm going to build, which is adding the to-do list on the server side. So now that I'm on my feature branch, I'm going to add a project. I've got a server-side project here and a client-side project. I'm going to build this for the server side. Later, I'll move it over to the client side. So, or I'll do a demo on the client side. So I'm going to add a project to my solution. And I'm going to I want a class library. So this one right here. This is a .NET class library. I'm going to call it shared classes. Sometimes I've called this entities. I've been going back and forth on what the best name for it is. We'll just call it entities. And then I'll make it .NET 8, just like the other project. So this project is going to have classes that are shared by both the server side and the client side. I'm going to right-click on dependencies here on the server-side project and add a project reference to that. And same thing down here on the client side. I'm going to add a project reference off of dependencies to this. So both of these projects can see things in this project. I'm going to delete that class. I'm going to add a folder called models. And then in this models folder, I'm going to add a class called ToDo, which will represent a to-do item. I want this to be public, and I'm going to use GUIDs for my IDs. I'll give it a title. It's complete. We'll give it a description, when it was created, and I'm going to make everything nullable. So once I have that, the next thing I want to do is go to my ToDo app and grab my application DB context, and we're going to make a DB set for this. We'll bring in our using directive for entities. We'll make sure that's inside the class. And then I'm going to look at my migrations. I'm going to go to my Package Manager console, and I'm going to add a migration. I'm going to take a look at this and see everything's made okay. Note that even though I set in my ToDo this to be nullable for the ID, when it creates it, it's smart enough to figure out to make this not be nullable here. It's handy to have it nullable here. Sometimes we want to communicate throughout the site that this is a brand new object, so I usually leave that nullable. Okay, so once I have that, the next thing I'm going to do is check see if it was created okay. So let's view our SQL Server Object Explorer. I'm going to look at what the connection string is for this, and they called it ASP.NET ToDo app, and then this GUID number. And let's see. Actually, I'm going to, while I'm at it here, I'm going to make this database name simpler. They do that to avoid to deconflict. I'm going to just make it ToDo app DB. And then update database. So you're adding migrations and then updating database will actually update it here. refresh. There's my database. I can see the tables. And I have my table. Okay. So once I have my to-do, I have it in the database. The next thing is then to make a page to work with it. So we're going to make these all be server-side pages. So I'm going to add a page, or actually I'm going to add a folder under my pages and call it this to-do pages. And then add a razor component to-dos page, plural. I want this page to be able to be navigated to, so I'm going to add a page directive. That's called to-dos. And just to start off with, I'm then going to go to my layout, my nav menu. And add a link. And I get to the page, so that link works. And now what I want is a list of to-dos. So in here, I'm going to want a list of to-dos. Now this using directive is going to be used in a lot of places, so I'm going to remove it from here and go to the imports page and just add it to the imports page. This way, any other pages which need to access that model will automatically have it, and I don't have to have it in this page. Now, what I need to do is I need to be able to bring the to-dos in here into this. So I'm going to need a data access layer. And to begin with, I'm going to add a folder in my data for I'm going to call them DALs, for data access layers. And I'm going to also create a new folder for mock DALs. And in here I'm going to add a class which is to do DAL mock. And I'm going to have a list of to do in here. Okay, so it provided me a nice mock-up of some to-dos, and then I'm going to mock up what the my CRUD methods. So this is going to return a task of list of to-do. I'm making these asynchronous because normally when you're working with the database, you end up wanting to work with them asynchronously. And I will need some other methods, but I'm going to just stick with this. And I'm going to extract an interface from this. That creates this interface, which I'm going to rename to that. And then I'm going to put this interface actually up here in my entities folder. So I'm going to add move this up to these interfaces, or to this entities, because eventually I want that in my client app. And then I'm going to change the namespace of this to this namespace. So this will be entities dot interfaces. So I'll match basically to-do app, entities, and interface, the folder structure. When you move it from one project to another, it doesn't delete it, so I'm going to delete this now because it's a duplicate. Oh, didn't change it. There we go. I was looking at the wrong one. So this is now entities interfaces, and we've got that link here. So, okay, so that seemed like a little bit of a rigmarole, but we're going to want this here, and we're going to want an interface here. We'll see why later. So I've got my mock, which I can use for testing and for initial development. And back on the page now, I want to be able to inject this to-do DL into my application. So we're going to use what's called the dependency injection. We're going to go to program.cs for a server because we're making this on the server. And we're going to pick a place here. Usually I put it right after the configuration of the database. There we go. This is part of the database too. So right here, I'm going to put a section in here. And I'm going to add it for my mocks. They kind of work better if they're added as a singleton, because otherwise the things you do to the list go away when you generate them. So I'm going to add my mock as a singleton. Which then means that I can inject it here. And again, I think I'm going to be doing this a lot, so I will put that import statement here in my shared imports. So now I have my to-do list. I want to display it. So it's possible that it'll be null at one point in time. So I'm going to say if to-dos equals null, I'll just display a loading message. And then otherwise, for each to-do, we'll just display the title initially. Now, I've got to get this to-do list from the DAL, so I'm going to override my uninitialized. And this now is getting from my mock, it's going to get this list and have them available for here. I'm going to now run this and see if I get them. Well, actually, if I do this right now, it should display nothing because I don't have any to-dos in there. We'll let it build. Oh, no, I do, because I do have some, because I'm using the mock, which is one of the nice reasons to use the mock. So there I've got my to-dos listed. I want this to be a little nicer, so what I'm going to do then is go to Bootstrap, and let's see, we want some kind of a list layout. That looks pretty good. So I just bring it up there as an example. Mostly I just want these class names. Okay, that looks pretty good. And now maybe what I want to do is create a detail view for each one. So I'm going to add a button. And I'll use some Bootstrap classes, btn outline primary. And actually, this we're going to make it, I think, an anchor tag. I think it still looks the same. Okay, so now question is, where do we want this to go to? We need a page to do a detail view. So I'm going to go back in here and add a page. And call it ToDo detail. So this page needs to know which one it's going to look at. If I were using integers and IDs, I would need this to specify that this would be an integer, but mine are GUID, so they're going to be strings. And then I need a way of getting the data. So I'm going to inject my DAL. I don't need that. I do need a parameter here. And then I'm going to need a get method in my DL. I'm also going to need a ToDo here at the top, so that this, now I need to get this from my data access layer. So if I look at my, I don't have a method for this, so I can just right click on this And I can bring this in as a string, or I can bring it in as a GUID. So I think I'm going to say GUID.parse this. So the string will come in, I'll parse it as a GUID and pass it to this get async method. And then what I'm going to do is sometimes it'll stub it out for me. So it's not going to stub it out. I need a method in my interface. This will be a task. Get by ID async. That's a better name. I'm going to use that. Okay, now I've got it in my interface. I need to go to my mock. And I need to implement that interface. You could type this all out. I just find it's useful to use the Visual Studio code. And so we need to find the to-do in here with this ID. Well, we're going to use link. So we're going to say return task from result. And we're going to go to to-dos. We're going to get the first or default where our ID in the GUID corresponds with this GUID. And since it might not find anything, we need to make this null. Because I made that null, I need to go up and change the interface, and then we can come back to here, and this could be null, so we're going to do that. So this could very well get a null value in here. And so up here I could say at if to-do equals null. Well, we didn't find one. Otherwise, we have one. So in here, we can display it. And how do we want to display it? Another nullable possibility is this is null. So we may do a null check here. If ID does not equal null, then we will do this stuff. And then in here, what I can do then is say, well, let's see. I want to display it. So maybe what I'll do is I'll say I don't think I've got a priority. Do I? Okay, so let's see what this does. And probably nothing because I didn't wire that up. So I'm going to go to my to-dos page, and I need to put a link here. And so I can construct this link, href is equal to, and we've got this to do, so we could say at to do, but it's really going to be the name of the page, which is just that. So we're going to, so where we're going is we're going to go to do, which is here, and then the ID slash the ID, which is this part here. So there's the slash and there's the ID. So that should make the right route to go to the to-do page. Let's give it a shot. Interesting. I just put it into the title. Where did I put this? Oh, I put it into the wrong spot. It needs to be on this side. I had it inside of the content rather than inside of the where attributes go. Okay, well, this is not displaying what I wanted. What's going wrong with that? Oh, no wonder my IntelliSense wasn't coming up. I was thinking I was just writing text. I need my @ symbol to say that I'm writing C#. Okay, well, it'd be nice to be able to go back, so I'm going to put a back button here. We'll just do it as a link. Okay, so we've got our, we can see our pages. Let's see, this is a date time. To see that. We need because it's nullable, we have to put .value to get a value if it has one. And let's see. we'll do that. The other thing when we do that is it says that could be null, so we will put that. Oh, I guess we could just do this. And I'm going to see, did my mock set dates? Oh, I didn't set dates. Okay, well, let's put some dates in here. All right, so that's not bad. Now, probably what would be nice is that's a good way to build a page. It just shows a detail view, but it'd be nice to be able to edit in here. So I'm going to change this up. I could make a detail view and an edit view, but I'm going to make this actually do the edit. And so let's change this to an input. And so what I'm going to do then is look at Bootstrap forms. And this looks like a decent looking form. So I'm going to grab this and turn this into a form. And the help field's nice, but I don't need it. I don't think I really need that for this. To-do forms are not that super complicated. And I'm going to use the Blazor built-in input text component. And once I have that, the description is completed, created by, so I've got all those. This will now be, for this, I think I want an input text area. So we got the description is completed. We don't need those with we don't need this type attribute with the components. And then let's see, created at and we will need to do some binding, so we'll do that in a second. So because this Boolean thing, we need to bind this to a Boolean, and our Boolean in here is actually a nullable Boolean. We can't bind the input checkbox directly to it. So I'm just going to put a Boolean here, and on initialize, once we have this, I'm going to say is complete equals ToDo is complete. And I'm going to equals true. So if we do get it, then this will be set, and then later on, when we update, we will look at it again. So let's see if that works. Okay, so I've got, this is kind of weird. I can get rid of that. So I've got my fields, so I can get rid of this. I want to keep that anchor tag to return back. I've got my form. Let's see what we can do for a checkbox. The styling of the checkbox looks weird, so I'm going to go to Bootstrap and look up checkboxes. Should be under controls. Checks and radius. Okay, so here we can see they tend to do it this way. I'm going to just take this example. So I can see it. So they put the label afterwards. There, that looks pretty good. And now we want to submit this, so let's look up Blazor forms. And so we're going to switch this to a form tag that looks something like this. So we need an update method in our data access layer in order for this to work. So this submit method will take the changes and do an update. The other thing to remember is we have this is completed here. So before we do an update, we need to say ToDo dot is complete equals is complete. Oh, they already have it. Okay, so we need to add this update async method. And so I'm going to create a task. And once I have that, then I'm going to go to my mock. Implement the interface. And then in here, this is just going to say to-dos. So first, we're going to find the existing to-do. So we're going to find the first or default where the ID is equal to this one's ID. And then we'll assign everything back over to it. And then what we'll do is we'll just return a completed task to let them know that we did that. Okay, so we've got that done here. We've got our submit. We have our form, which submits the value. Let's see if it works. That's interesting. Why am I getting an anti-forgery token? Oh, I forgot to change this to edit form. And I think yeah, I don't need this with an edit form. I will need a model. And I'm looking this up here. So we need to specify in model what object we're doing this form for. Okay, so let's see. Okay, there's something malformed with our event callback. So I'll just let it tell me how it needs to look. Yep, it needs event args. And then I can just take this, put it in here. Let's see if that works, or if I need to make that void. And these need to be like that, because those, yep. Still doesn't like that. Let's see. Ah, it wants a edit context. Okay, finally figured it out. So with an edit form, it wants, you got to use the attribute, or you have to use the property names, not the @bind attributes. You have to specify a method which uses an edit context, and then yeah, the rest should be okay. Let's see if this works. Okay, that doesn't seem like it's going anywhere. Oh, okay, so it's going through and it's actually updating our mock database. What we haven't done, though, is we haven't returned, and then we don't see the update here because we haven't told it to update. Or let's see. No, we've modified it. Let's. Interesting. Let's see. Oh, maybe it's this. Okay. I think that's working now. Let's see. We update that. We step into here. Yep. I'll continue on. And we see that it's working. We are able to we were able to modify things. An issue here, but most of this is working. Yep. Okay, so got an issue with the date, but overall this appears to be working. The next thing is maybe in our page we want to show the completion status, so I will add and I think I want this link after the completion status. So we'll do the ToDo, the title is completed, and this doesn't look great that way, so maybe what we'll do is we'll say, make this a ternary operation. Because it's a nullable, we have to do it this way. And we'll probably make that in a checkbox that's interactive later. We've got extra parentheses there. That needs to go away. And then what we also want to do is make it so that when we click on complete, we navigate back to the main page. So how do we do that? Well, we're going to inject a navigation. Actually, we can do it without a navigation. What we could do is just say we could put a URL in here. I think I'm going to put a, you do it with the navigation manager. I kind of prefer it. So we'll inject a navigation manager, and then that should allow us to, down here, navigate back to our to-dos page. Yep. So we're able to change things, and it goes immediately back. And then really this is not so much a return. We can make this a cancel button, and we can just do that by styling it as a cancel button. So rather than that, we will say class equals btn secondary maybe. And I think I'm going to move it right up next to this. And then change that to cancel. So one's a button, one's an anchor tag, but they both look like buttons. Ah, now that's interesting. It canceled, but it still made the change. And that's because it's pointing to the same object. I think once we have a database, that will go away. Okay, so we've got our cancel button, we've got edit button. Now we need to add the ability to create a new object. So under our list, let's add another. We can do it with a button, with a navigation, or we can do it with an anchor tag. And what we could do is, we'll just say if we go to the to-do page like that, that would be an add. Now then we can go to our detail view, and we need another route to handle just that, which means that this ID will come in as negative, and that means as null. And if that comes in as null, then we want this to make a new to-do. Let's see if that works. Now, it didn't add it, so why not? Well, let's see. Right now, we just have an update. And if we follow the logic to that update, I'm going to step into here. Well, that's null. So it doesn't even bother doing anything. Now, there's a couple ways we can handle this. One is we can make a completely different, we can make an add method. And so I could add a to-do, and it'll add it to this list. But then we need to make sure that we call that from here. So how do we know in this submit if we have a new one? Well, first we'll check to see if it's null. And what we could do is we can say if and just to be thorough, we can say if it's null or so if we have a brand new GUID, we can tell by the ID field. And we can update the ID. Set the created time. And then so what we'll do then is we'll call our update, and that'll call our add, and that will add that to do. Otherwise, the to do is, and then actually we need this as well. So we can put this in front. Otherwise, we're just doing an update, and so we'll call the update method. And it makes sense to me that, we probably don't want, we can automate this created and update. So we can take those two fields out and we can let this we can handle that manually here. So we'll just use datetime now, update those. Those will not be input fields. And in both cases, we need to navigate back. So we'll put that on the outside there. And then it might be kind of cool to see the update dates. So we can put that in. To the to-dos page. And at this point, this is getting kind of heavy. So maybe what we'll do is we'll convert this into a table. So let's go to Bootstrap. And let's look at the docs and look up tables. That looks like a good looking table. We'll just take the top part of this with one table row. Put this up here as an example. So yeah, that will go up here. And then this will become /table. And then we have our for each. We'll need a header, so we'll bring this in top here. And we don't need that. We will have the title, the completion, which means that then those become table rows. Those will become table data. Shift-Alt-W surrounds something, so that's kind of handy for this. Okay, so we've rewickered this into a table. Let's see if it looks a little better. Yeah, I think that's a little neater. And then maybe we want to put in the update dates in here. So we can go in here and put in so we got those two headers, and then here we want two table datas. And it's keeping track of the created and updated times. And why do I have those extra closing tags? So this is weird. It's right next to the to-dos. Inspect that, just see what that's coming from. Interesting. Okay. Okay, so now we've got our form working, we've got a mock working, so how do we now bring it to actually work with the database? Right now, if we look at our to-dos, they're not actually affecting the database, we've been using this mock. Well, what we can do is go back here and add a class. This will be our ToDo DAL class. And we're going to say implement the interface. And that will add all of our methods. We'll stub them all out. And now we just need to work with our database. To work with our database, we need an access to the application DB context. Now, when we built this, it actually built a application DB context for us. If you're working with an application that doesn't have a database already built into it, there's documentation out there how to bring it in, but essentially you just declare this class and add the NuGet package. So that SQL Server, any framework SQL Server, and tools here, these two libraries allow us to do what we're going to do with the database. So this application DB context needs to be made available for us, and they already did that by adding an application DB context for us in the startup of our application. So we already have this, which means, as part of our services, which means that we can go to our actual DL, and we can inject it. And we're going to use the constructor to do this. And we're going to add, inside of this constructor that we have here, we're going to add an application DB context. And we're going to add a private field. And then in here, we're going to say, we're going to take the one from that's injected through our constructor and bring it in here. This is done automatically for you through the injection service that's provided in the template for Blazor. And so now we just need to implement these methods. And so to add, we just say context dot to-dos dot add this to-do, and then save changes async. And so this, we're going to go to our to-dos from our context. That's that DB set. And we could say, just turn that into a list, and then return that. Now, note, since all these are asynchronous methods, we have to make these methods asynchronous and await them. Same thing here. We're going to go to our context, to the to-dos, and then we're going to say find the first one where, and then we put a lambda expression to express what we want to find. We want to find the first item where the ID is equal to this ID field. And then here, the update, no, sometimes it detects, if you type await, it automatically does all that for you. So then we're going to save the changes. So whenever we modify the database, we have to call save changes async, it does database. But once you have the mock done, knocking out these methods is actually pretty boilerplate. And so those will be our database methods. This is the real mock, so then we can go into our program.cs, and where we added our mock as a singleton, we are now going to add our to-do AL, and we need to add a reference to the real ones. Notice our mock one suddenly goes away. It's no longer needed. And we're not going to do, we're going to add it as a transient. The difference between singleton, if you create a singleton, it creates, the first time it gets referenced, it creates that object and keeps it for the lifetime of our application. We don't want those things to be alive longer than we need them. And so transient will bring something in existence when something needs it, and then get rid of it right away when it's no longer needed. So normally you want transient. Sometimes you'll go with scoped, which will stay for the time that the person is logged onto the system. And sometimes you do need things to be singletons. So we're going to go with transient, and let's see if this works. So we don't have any. We're going to create one. Submit. And there it is. Let's go to detail. And it's been updated. And then we could add another to-do. So this looks like this is working. It's interesting. We only have one of these here. So then we can go check our database. And we can see there's our to-do going into the database. So that's working. One thing we're missing, though, is the ability to delete. Generally speaking, we will put that on the to-dos page. And so we want a delete button. Let's neaten this up a little bit. And make this dangerous. And we're not going to want this to be an anchor tag. We're going to want this to be a button. We're going to handle this code inside of here. So deletes usually happen inside of the database. Because I'm going to be, I'm going to be working with this again. I'm going to go back to my mock. So I've got a delete button. We don't need an href. What we need is we need a method. So when we click on this, we're going to make a delete by hitting Control Dot. So here's what I did to create this. If I hit Control Dot, or if I hit right click, Quick Actions and Refactoring, I can select Generate Event Handler, and it will generate the event handler for me. I could just type this out, but I may forget that I need a mouse event args here. So it's just easier. And then the question is I need a DAL. I have a DAL, so I'm going to call my DAL, and I'm going to delete async. And I need, thing is, I need, for the to-do I'm in, I need to know which one I need to delete. So this doesn't work great for me because the event args don't really help me much. What does args give me? It tells me where. So there's cool stuff I could do with that, but it's not immediately useful here. What I really need is a delete method, which is asynchronous. Which is an asynchronous task, which I need a GUID for an ID. And I need my DAL to delete this ID. So I'm going to, so I need this. This won't work. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to convert this into a lambda expression. And so I'm going to say goes to delete the todo.id. So I'm going to take the ID field from this. Oh, I see what the problem was. I was fine the way it was before. So because this could be nullable, I need this to be nullable. Okay, so that works now. So this is going to call this delete method. It's going to pass in the ID field from this 2D. This now needs a delete method in the DL. So I'm going to go back to my interface. I'm going to add a task. Oops, looks like I had it. Which means that I am then going to go to my mock. My mock needs to be implemented. Here's my delete method. And the delete, I'm just going to say, I'm going to find the to-do that's associated with that ID. Basically, I'm going to say find the first or default. And then I'm going to say so that's my mock-up of my delete method. And then I'm going to go back to my to-dos page. And it says, hey, I can't convert that to a good. And I'm just going to say if so I'm going to convert it from a nullable good to a good. So it's theoretically possible for this to be a null. I don't think it's likely. But that handles my null reference exception possibility there. We check to see if it's a null. If it isn't, then we go ahead and do the delete. And let's see if that works. Okay, something I might have forgotten. Oh, yeah, so our actual one doesn't implement this, so it's telling us that. I'm just going to implement the interface and leave it with the not implemented exception for now. This is in the real one, not the mock. But we can't run it without fixing that. Now we have a delete button. And let's see. So it doesn't seem to be doing anything. Why is that? Well, let's see. We've let's go back to our to-dos page. And let's see what happens here. Doesn't seem to be even going there. And our friend interactivity is not set. So we started, up till now, we haven't really needed any interactivity. So we need to add a render mode interactive server in here because we are now doing things which involve buttons and needs interactivity. So if things aren't working right, suspect render mode. And let's see, step in. Let's see if that's working. It found it. It removes it. It's returning a completed task. And it actually is deleting it. So let's take out our breakpoints. And let's see if it just works. Yep. Yep. Let's refresh because we're using a mock. Brings them all back, which is kind of handy. Now, let's go to our actual DAL and implement the delete method. And so we're just going to say context.remove and we need to find it. So we're going to go to our context, find the to-do that we want to delete, and then delete it. And then because we're making a change database, we need to save asynchronously. And I'm just going to turn this into an await. Make it asynchronous. You don't. So sometimes you don't need to immediately await. You can make your methods so that they don't do it. But we're going to need to save these changes. Otherwise, why would you do them? So in a web application, typically we are going to await and make them asynchronous. Here it's giving us a warning. Hey, what if you didn't find it? So we're going to say if to-do does not equal null, then we'll do all this. So we've got to find one. So we have an error checking here. You could throw an exception if it's not found if you wanted to, or you could return a results object. So there's different ways of handling that. And then let's see if it works. Well, we need to also update which one we're using. So our test one is working. I'll put my mocked in scoped. Okay, let's add transient. So now we're using our database. Okay, so this is interesting fact. So we add one, we put this in here, we submit it, we hit delete, and it seems like nothing happened. But if we refresh, we do have a deletion. And where this often happens is here in our to-dos page, we've deleted it from a database, but it's still sitting here in this local to-dos. So that's one of the issues with the mock, is the mock actually, this would be pointing to the same list. So instead what we're going to do is, so what we have to do is we have to remove it from there. So we'll say todos.remove. So we passed in the good. I'm going to just pass in the whole to-do because we need to remove that from the database here. So we add in so here we're just going to bring in the whole thing. So we're going to remove this, and actually the way this works, I don't think we need this null check, we just need this one. So we're going to remove this one, and then we're going to from the database, and then we're going to remove this one from the local list, and now it should work. And there it works. Okay, so that completes this. Now what I'm going to do is check on my changes. Probably should have been doing more check-ins as we went, but we have one big check-in. Push that up to the server. And then now I want to merge this into the dev branch. So I'm going to check out the dev branch. I usually like to make sure that I close all my tabs, make sure that everything is saved or there's no pending changes. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to the dev branch and then merge all these changes into the dev branch. Make sure everything's pushed. And then run it and make sure that it works on the dev branch. Okay. So we have a working to-do list with CRUD. Thank you very much.